welcome to Furious Driving, and this is my 2002 Ford Crown Victoria P71 Police Interceptor, which right now I was meant to be filming a video about detailing and cleaning up and making it look absolutely immaculate. Unfortunately, the weather is not on my side, so let's embark on a bit of carcheology, which is like archaeology but with cars, and figure out a bit of the history, which is the biggest question I keep getting asked. What did this car do? Where did it come from? All that kind of stuff. Let's go find out. Turn the fan off. It's good to be in, out of the rain, and yes, I am sitting on a towel, and yes, there is a fan blowing down there, a heater, because I gave up trying to wash the outside. I washed the inside and now I've got damp seats, so I'm sitting on a nearly dry chair. So let's crack on. And in case you're wondering how long I've been looking for one of these things, it is, well, it's like a decade or so. The first time I rode in one of these was back in 2002 when I went to New York for the first time. It's just left a lasting impression. And I've been going to America ever since, on and off. And the first thing I take a picture of is generally a Crown Victoria. This picture has been on my living room wall since about 2010. So it really wasn't a spur of the moment decision. Now, the thing is, anyone who is into cars knows that they're more than just bits of metal and rubber and glass. They're a story, they're a background, they're the people who drove them are part of the tale as well. So cars are more than just inanimate objects, they're a whole history, which is the thing we kind of love, isn't it? So as soon as I bought this car, I was starting to try and figure out what its history had been, because it's a little bit of a curious one. A low mileage, full police spec P71 Police Interceptor that wasn't racking up police miles and getting the idle hours and all the rest of it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now, pretty much as soon as I got hold of this car, I got hold of the title, or at least a scan of it, an email, and that showed me that this is a one-owner car, and that one owner is the city of Beechwood, which kind of threw me a bit because it didn't say the police force, it said the city. So I was a little bit confused, because looking at the spec of it, the rubber floor, the vinyl back seat, it is basically I call it detective spec, because it's not like a squad car, patrol car would get. It's a little bit up on that because you've got two separate bucket seats. We haven't got screw holes for all of the patrol equipment in the centre, would have been mounted into it. So yeah, I would call it a detective car. Maybe it was a pool car, maybe it was like a government official's car who just got it because it was a fleet deal. Now, before we get into this, I need to say a couple of big thank yous. First of all, thank you to everyone who I've emailed in America who has come back and been massively helpful and given me pointers and given me information. And secondly, a big thank you to Darren from Free Pine Ships Garage, who happens to live in Ohio and was my man on the ground doing extra squirreling around. And if you like interesting cars, head over to his channel because he's got an amazing collection of stuff over there in Ohio. So the first couple of things I did was have a look at Google and see what this town of Beechwood was actually like. And to my minor horror, it turned out it wasn't a nice warm town somewhere in the middle of America like I kind of assumed it was. Turns out it's up by Lake Michigan, it's just outside Cleveland, and it's right in, well, kind of the north. It's the snow belt, or the salt belt as a lot of people call it, which had me worried quite a lot because cars in that area, Chicagoland, tend to rust quite a lot. But the pictures looked really good. It didn't look like a rusty car. So I was crossing my fingers I was going to be okay on that front. Then I had to look around on Google Earth Street Map. Got to actually see what the town was like, and it looks like a nice place, to be honest. And almost the first thing I found on Street View was this Dunkin' Donuts. That was completely by chance, I promise. I even thought that Cadillac was this car for a second. Then I decided, well, the best thing to do would be to go and try and talk to the police department. So I emailed the general inquiry email address at Beechwood Police Department. Now, someone did come back to me. He didn't remember the car, but he was able to put me in touch with someone in the vehicle department, the motor maintenance division. But they did give me one useful bit of information, is that almost all cars working from the police department in Beechwood are white. So a green car would be very much out of place, which made me think maybe it was an admin car. So I then had an email of someone else, and I emailed him and nothing happened. But I didn't have the car at that point. So in the meantime, Darren was kind enough to go and sort me out a Carfax report, because this gives you all the ins and outs, the background details of what your car is, what it's done, the mileage, all that kind of stuff. Find out if you've got a real car that hasn't been smashed up and rebuilt, a ringer of some kind. So what did the reports say? Well, it's lived a life. The mileage is correct. That is one good thing. But it has been involved in a couple of minor fender benders, but nothing too serious. And interestingly, only one service history record. But then if it's been maintained by the fleet department, it won't be going back to Ford for all that kind of stuff, so it won't show up. Well, I can tell you a couple of things now. It was purchased in 2002 by the government, who are the one owner for 19 years and 10 months. And with a certified mileage of 80,217, it's gone up just a little touch since then. it was averaging 4,101 miles a year, which is absolutely nothing. Good news, there are no salvage, junk, rebuild, flood or fire titles adding to it, connected to it, so looks like it hasn't been exploded in the past. It's never been a total loss, and no structural damage has been recorded, which is also very, very good. Getting into further details, I know it was built, it rolled out of the St Thomas plant in Ontario, Canada on the 12th of December 2001. So it's only about 6 months newer than my little red wire plate Mini. Then it didn't get registered for a little while. 1st of July 2002, it was registered to the Motor Vehicle Department in Beechwood, Ohio. They're the first owner and the only owner until me. But that doesn't really say anything about what it was doing. It could have been any government job at all. But in April 2003, it went back to Ford. Ford Motor Company Manufacturer Customer Satisfaction Program 02B02 Optimal CVPI Upgrade Program, which I've done a bit of Googling on, and it's extra protection around the rear axle and the fuel tank and things. And you can actually look under the car and see some yellow stuff, which I think is that stuff. Now, this is the important bit though. Vehicle must be in law enforcement duty and verify law enforcement, which means this was some kind of, well, was either a police car or federal car. Now, talking to Darren over in Ohio, he knows people in the FBI, and he put it to them, might this be one of their cars? And the colour and the spec did suggest maybe this is an FBI car. That's quite exciting if it was. But all we see apart from this for the next couple of years is that it was inspected biannually, which I think is the way things work in Ohio, and passed the emissions with no problems. And in 2012, it went back to Marshall Ford Lincoln Mercury in Cleveland for a service, which is a bit curious. Maybe there was a recall or something in 2012. Then we get a couple of interesting things turn up in the history. 2015, registration issued or renewed, titled or registered for government use. So in one respect, nothing's changed, but in another respect, something has. And it's still registered as Ohio Motor Vehicle Department, so I wonder what's gone on there. Then some bad stuff. 2018, October 2018, the 25th of October in fact, accident reported, minor damage, and it's listed as the most minor on the severity scale possible. Front and rear driver's quarters, both damaged. Doesn't say how, doesn't say what happened, just says damage to the car. And I can say, looking at that, there is not the perfect paint match on that front wing, and there's overspray on the rear wing, so I kind of figured that had happened anyway. And then February 2019, so what, 4 months later, another accident. This one, it was purely the front bumper, and again listed as the most minor possible. Airbags did not deploy in either accident, so that's good. The structure of the dashboard hasn't been ripped apart by explosives. So yeah, curious. So two minor bumps, but I don't know if that was some kind of police duty incident or just someone banged it in a car park. It could have been doing a pit maneuver, it could have been doing some stopping a bad guy thing. It'd be nice to think it was some kind of exciting, heroic maneuver, and this car is some kind of hero, but I guess we'll never know. But then that's all the Carfax says right up until June 2021, which is when it was sold off at auction to the car dealer who I bought it from. And the car dealer, having bought it from the city auction, was able to find out, I guess, a little bit of history and know that the idle hours, as he stated in the advert, were very low to match the mileage, which is, again, incredibly low for a Crown Vic. I mean, a 2001 or 2002 Crown Victoria really should be showing at least double that. 160 to 200,000 miles would be your normal estimated mileage on a police duty car. I do apologise if that polythene outside the car is rattling. Then the car arrived, as you saw, and finally I had a car to go with the scant bits of paper of, you know, shipping information, shippers' reports of the condition to see what I'd actually bought. So a huge relief to find out it wasn't a complete rust bucket. It's a really good looking car that runs really nicely. So a massive, massive relief. I had in the meantime also ordered a thing called a Marty report, which is like a full Ford history thing, showing recalls and servicing and all kinds of other stuff, which has not appeared. 6 weeks, I think, is a long time to wait for something. So yeah, that might not be ever going to turn up. But then once I got the car and I got photos of it and pictures of it on the trailer and the video and everything, I sent a second email to the guy in the motor vehicle department to say, look, I've now got the car, but I haven't got any service history. Any chance you've got that on file? Because I'd love to know whether or not, well, the car's ever had an oil change at the very least. Because, you know, these cars have certain things that fail frequently and regularly, and it's nice to know if they've been changed, and there are recalls and that kind of stuff as well, so good to know if they've been done too. So amazingly, and thank you so much, he came back. with 8 pages of A4 of service history. So yes, this car has had many oil changes. And this entire first page and a half is basically oil filters and oil and your battery or two actually, and brakes and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it does show it's a government vehicle being serviced to the letter basically. So whenever anything needs doing, it's being done. So if it needs a fuel filter, it gets done. If it needs front rotors and pads, they get done. Battery, not a problem. One curious one, fire panel. I don't know what a fire panel is. It's $500 though. So I'm guessing it's important, and it was changed back in 2008, so that's good. But the thing which really grabbed my attention right at the top of this is this number 122. That's a fleet number or a unit number. That makes this sound like this was a police car, an actual doing police stuff police car to me. But no confirmation of that. Going through all this, then we've got things like we've lost a wheel cover and we've changed some tyres. These Goodyear RSA tyres are not cheap. Back in 2009, a pair of them cost $330. I think they've come down to about half that now, but that's like $160 each. And a wheel trim's $40. Those have gone up a tiny bit in the meantime. But here's a bad thing that wasn't on the Carfax report. I'm getting my American dates the wrong way around. This isn't February, it's July. July 2010, it had a rear bumper incident. Repair rear bumper, remove, inspect. So I just had to move the camera because the wind was getting so strong it was blowing stuff past the car. Right, so where were we? So yeah, beyond that, just lots and lots of regular servicing. That's like 8 pages of it. Things like sensors, EGR valves, gaskets being changed, discs and pads every couple of years, Eagle RSA, Goodyear tyres being done as and when they're needed. So whenever anything needs doing, it's being done. They really seem to look after their cars well in this department. Solenoid for $60, canister for $100. Interestingly, in January 2012, a new fuel tank strap, sender, screw for $7. Yeah, that's curious, and a fuel cap for $13. I'm hoping that wasn't because it rotted out, because it is the rust belt. And in my BMW Mini, the tank straps on those rot out, even if it's not particularly salty, so that was interesting. But then, interestingly, it kind of goes quiet for a year or two. 2012, 2013, 2015, it just has batteries changed and nothing else. I'm guessing it's done under warranty because they've just worn out and the car wasn't doing any mileage, perhaps. And then on February the 12th, 2015, it became car 122, from car 12-56. So it's changed its unit number. So that would also coincide with the re-registering it. So I'm guessing it has changed departments, or it must have changed departments, and therefore changed use in the beginning of 2015. And I guess it was standing fairly idle for about 3 years before that. Good news, the aircon was regassed back in 2017, which is good. It does blow cold, so that worked. And then bad stuff. We mentioned the accident in 2018. Body labour, $336. Paint labour, $176. Paint materials, $126. Parts, $6. Then in 2020, a bit more service. They just kept on chucking money at this thing, which is good from my point of view. It had an idle arm, a pitman arm, and an upper ball joint, which came to about $250 all told for that particular, just parts alone, I think. And then also in the beginning of 2020, back in March, there are lower steering shaft and intermediate steering shaft and a steering alignment and a lower ball joint, which they had to do at the same time, I'm guessing, which is all very good because I happen to know there is a steering shaft recall on these cars, and if it hadn't been done in America, getting it done over here by Ford would probably be pretty tricky. I'm not sure they would have honoured that. And finally, the last bits of service in here, they had a new heater core back in April this year, so even just 2 months before they got rid of it, defleeted it, they were still putting money into the thing. Then it breaks down into more specifics about when certain things happened and the name of the mechanic who did the work, so obviously I won't show you this page. But interestingly, the fuel tank was a recall, which is good news. It wasn't rust, it was done because Ford thought of a better solution to whatever was done, and this just shows all those things. The rear windows have been repaired. It doesn't say the year, but it cost $500 to service and repair the rear windows. So I'm glad that's been done. That was done at 38,000 miles, so halfway through its mileage life. Bodywork repair, rear bumper and quarter panel, which I'm hoping is the same one as that's on the Carfax. So yeah, it shows there has been a lot of work taken care of in this car. the motor vehicle department in Beechwood really do take care of their cars, and the condition of this thing really shows it, and that goes to back it up really, that anything that needed doing to this car looks like it was done, and it was involved in 3 accidents, count them, 3, but that still didn't answer what this car exactly was doing. We knew it was something to do with the police department, but not really what. But then Darren went for a drive. He had to go to Cleveland a couple of days ago, and on the way back he stopped outside Beechwood Police Station. He took some photos of it to show me where the car had been based. He took a little drive around the town, and then he knocked on the door of the police station. And then, against all the odds, the sergeant who came out to talk to this crazy Englishman who wanted to talk to anyone about cars remembered this thing. It was the only green Crown Victoria on the fleet. He drove it. He was a detective. He still is a detective. He's been on the force for over 20 years, and he's driven this car back when it was brand new and for many years afterwards. So he remembered the car. It was a detective car at the police station. I don't know if it was his own personal car or if it was kind of a fleet of pool cars that were taken out day to day. It's not a big police station, so I imagine it's the kind of place where a car is taken home at the end of the day, because there's not room apparently to park them there. So possibly this was his personal car, I don't know. I'd love to find out more. Maybe we'll get to find out more in the future if we can go back and catch up with him again in the future. So that explains why there are wires cut in the boot and why there are screw holes in the dashboard. This was an actual serving detective vehicle. In the meantime, I had been emailing back to the guy in the garage to find out if I could get any information at all about what he knew the car had been used for. The last couple of years, this has been the motor vehicle department loan car, which is why it hung around on the force fleet for so long. It's unusual for a police force to have a 20-year-old vehicle or a 19-year-old vehicle still on their books. I mean, here in the UK, 3 to 4 years is the absolute maximum a car will stay on a police force. 20 years, unless it's a heritage car, is unheard of. So that explains why the car was hanging around. It had done its time. It had done about 12 years of actually being actively used, 3 years just not doing pretty much anything, and then finally transferred over to the motor vehicle department as a loaner. So when people came in to get their vehicle fixed or serviced, they could take this one out and go on duty. And I guess that's why it had 2 accidents in the last 2 years, because maybe people weren't paying quite the care that they should have been. Because let's face it, there's nothing drives as fast, corners as hard, or brakes as hard as a hire car. So there we have it. I am absolutely made up. I'm thrilled to know what this car was doing, what my Crown Victoria Police Interceptor was doing was actual police work. Now, very fortunately for me, this car is such an unusual colour, because I don't think I've ever seen another fern green Ford Crown Vic. It's certainly not a police interceptor in this colour. And that meant it stuck in this detective's mind. He remembered this car so vividly because it is such an unusually coloured car. So that has worked in its favour. I am very, very happy to know that this car was a proper law enforcement vehicle that's doing what it was designed to do for all those years. I do hope it was able to do some good in its community. It looks like Beechwood is a really nice little town, and next time I go to America, I'm going to make sure I divert over to Ohio and have a little walk around, a drive around, maybe even knock on the door of the police station and see if I can say hello. Right, there you have it. I hope this has been interesting and entertaining in some way, shape or form. For me, this has been absolutely fascinating. I really hope I will be able to get back in touch with the detective who drove this car in the future, see if he does have any other actual recollections of this car and what it got up to. So I hope you found that interesting to find out a bit about the history of this particular P71. If you have, please do hit like and subscribe, and there'll be more videos on this car coming up in the very near future, as well as the rest of the fleet, because all the cars are doing something at the moment, well, mostly. And yeah, join me again soon doing, I don't know what car next, who knows, there's something going to happen soon. Anyway, see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.